When missionaries visited the Democratic Republic of Congo with Bibles in their hands, the people of Congo closed their eyes and prayed. Behind their backs, Western powers pillaged towns, destroyed livelihoods, killing children. When the people of Congo opened their eyes again, they witnessed they lost everything: their economy, their humanity, their dignity. See, it's one thing when your prayers go unanswered. It's another when they destroy your very humanity. It is not enough for the international community to simply pray for the people of Congo and developing nations like them. No, we need to actually help them. For the past few decades, the international community, and more specifically, the First World Order, has done everything but directly help developing nations, simply because they have not given them a choice. For this speech and every speech onwards, I want to frame this debate around one word: choice. Which side, proposition or opposition, can give developing countries more of a choice of which countries they want to work with, what economic outcomes they are looking for, how they want their politics to develop. For decades, these countries have not been given a choice. The Cold War gave them proxy wars fought on their soil for someone else's agenda. Colonialism has not given them a choice. American unipolarity gave them one set of outcomes: less health spending, cut education, privatize your utilities. And if you reject those terms, you have no other country to get help from because you do not have a choice. Before we get into what that choice means for these countries, a few definitions. The definition of better for developing countries in this motion means three big things. First, economic outcomes, so capital and investment on terms that are being negotiated. Second, humanitarian conditions, which are a prerequisite to accessing any impact because the people need to benefit the most. Not the government, not America, not China, the people living within these countries. Third, agency, a genuine ability to say no, to walk away, to choose for themselves. Two big arguments in this speech. First, on what a choice provides countries, and second, on what happens to countries and accountability who don't have that choice. The first big thing I want everyone to understand is when you are a country that is in desperate need of economic help, that needs loans to stay afloat, that needs to employ its people, whose vast majority are in poverty or extreme poverty, you are waiting for any option. You do not have a choice of which countries you need to get help from. And when countries do not have that choice, they are forced to rely on countries that do not have their best interest in mind. The International Monetary Fund across the 1980s and 1990s imposed brutal conditions on sub-Saharan Africa. They cut public spending, they liberalized trade, they privatized state industries. Countries like Ghana and Zambia accepted that, not because they wanted to, but because they had no other alternative. As a result, to this date, their public health system is fractured. Their education access has went down. These are not bad governments making bad decisions. These are good governments who have no other choice but to make a bad decision because it is better than making no decision at all. When countries have a choice of which hegemon they want to go to, or which world power to get money or benefits from, you do not have to go to a bad alternative. Rwanda is the proof of this succeeding. President Paul Kagame deliberately grew partnerships with both Western institutions and China simultaneously. As a result, Rwanda was able to negotiate better infrastructure deals and development partnerships that neither country would have offered them unilaterally. I'm not saying the United States is perfect. I'm not saying China or any other country is perfect. I'm saying that giving countries a choice of which country they want to choose from, which countries they want to work with, get loans from, automatically improves countries for both, who have to compete to get the better deal. 3 impacts to what that choice produces. First, better economic terms. When countries compete, the price of alignment grows for developing nations. That means lower interest rates, better working conditions, more favorable deals. Second, political breathing room. When you as a developing country are not entirely reliant on one country, you are able to make domestic decisions without depending solely on whether that country is going to agree or not with you. Third and finally, dignity. There is something fundamentally different about a government that chooses its partnerships versus one that simply accepts what it is being given. One has sovereignty, the other does not. The second big argument is without competition, there is no accountability, and without accountability, the worst always happens. Everyone in this room agrees that hegemons have had a bad history of dealing with developing countries because they solely care about their own interests, not the other countries. But if you have two or more nations that are all vying for control, you are forced to care about the developing nation because you are forced to give them a better deal. Here is what accountability looks like. In 2003, when the United States invaded Iraq and was the only hegemon, the United Nations objected, but the Security Council was overruled because the United States had the only control. None of it mattered if other countries disagreed if there was only one hegemon. That is unipolarity when it goes wrong, not if it goes wrong, but when it goes wrong. The accountability mechanisms that constrain these powerful actors, the threat of losing alignment, the threat of being replaced by a rival, the diplomatic pressure that these countries put, none of that exists in a unipolar world, but they all exist in a multipolar world where you are forced to negotiate with a better option. That impunity has a limit, and countries are forced to push back. At the end of this speech, I want you to weigh the certainty of competitive incentives against the uncertainty of a benevolent hegemon. On our side, the mechanism is very simple. Competition produces better outcomes for the country being competed over. Rwanda got better terms because China was in the room. Ghana did not because nobody else was. That benefit is structurally there because of the rivalry that this motion creates. Second, on their side, you are asked to hope that the dominant power happens to be generous, to hope that it gets the policy right, to hope that it does not become Iraq. Side opposition is asking you to bet the futures of the world's most vulnerable people on the goodness of unchecked power. We have centuries of evidence to show how that bet turns out. Agency is the prerequisite for everything else. You cannot build an economy without negotiating on your own terms. You cannot have sovereignty without having somewhere else to go. You cannot have dignity without having someplace else to choose. The people of Congo prayed for a chance to choose for themselves. Multipolarity gives them that chance that a single superpower never has. I am so proud to propose.